110 through 113. We made good time along the Rhymes Way and into Canterbury, clattering through a gate in the wall so narrow that I feared for the widow's hat. After the mud and turf of the country ride, the cobblestones jarred through the horses' stiffening legs. We were glad to tumble off outside the Templars' hospital. "I'd prefer to spend the night at an inn," said the miller, but as it was, our party was so big that it took every bed the friars could offer us. No inn in Canterbury would have been big enough. Ranged along the refectory table, we shifted uncomfortably on our benches after the long ride, and were too tired to speak. Only as we wiped the trenchers clean with crusts of bread and supped a second cup of wine did we begin to feel talkative again. "Well," said the summoner, leaning across to rap the table in front of Harry, "who won?" "Ah," said Harry, "is that everybody then? No more stories?" We looked at each other, trying to match each face to the story it had told. "Well, it's obvious, isn't it?" said the miller. "For a laugh, it's got to be the friar. Devil take him! That's all supposing I can't vote for myself." His flaring nostrils so terrified the haberdasher that he immediately voted for Matt. "Humorous stories are all very well," said the prioress, licking her lips so that no crumb should escape. "But we must consider the value of the stories. How much did they teach us about life?" "Hear, hear," squeaked the summoner, plastering his hair across his skull with the palm of a sweaty hand. "I voted for Brother John's story myself, but then I've always liked words over and above the meaning wrapped up in them." The knight and his son both thought it merest chivalry to vote for a lady. They gave one look at the widow and voted for the young nun. But when the scholar was pressed for an opinion, he said, I'm afraid I wasn't listening very much. Sorry." "Where does that leave us?" snapped the magistrate waspishly. To my astonishment, I noticed that Harry was holding hands under the table with the widow. "What did you say?" he asked when he noticed that everyone's eyes were on him. "It's a split vote," I explained. "We can't agree who won." "Oh, I can tell you that," Harry said, and his florid face split into a smile as broad and white as a harvest moon. "I won!" There were murmurs of discontent. Had the contest been rigged from the start? Was the referee about to change the rules in his own favor? "I have won the agreement of this excellent lady," said Harry, standing up and bowing to the widow, "to become my wife. You're all invited to the wedding when we get back to Southwark." The prioress sniffed. The partner gave a disapproving bleat. But most of us cheered and stamped and banged our mugs on the table. "But whose story was best?" insisted the magistrate peevishly. The widow got to her feet, as majestic as an oak tree. She patted Harry on his bald head. "Your word is absolutely final, of course, my pet," she said, "but if I could venture a suggestion, these people won't be content till someone is declared best storyteller. Now there's not one story with more votes than another, so I suggest that we all tell another story on the way back, to part the sheep from the goats, so to speak. I tell you, reader, you never saw an idea so well received." "I'll tell you about the time I fought smugglers in the Spanish Main," said the ship's captain. "Have you heard the one about the three-legged ox?" asked the miller. "There's the sweetest little story I once heard about a martyred virgin who was boiled to death in—" "Wait till you hear mine, though. Stop!" The parson was holding up his hand for silence. "Let there be stories for every mile of the way home, but let us give over tomorrow to the truth. The truth is that the blessed Thomas à Becket, not a stone's throw from this very spot, laid down his life for the love of God. He brought us here, and tomorrow it's him we'll pray to in the cathedral. That's the truth. That's no story. That's all I wanted to say." And he sat down. He had silenced us. I sat thinking about poor St. Thomas lying on the cold stone floor with his murderer's sword sharp at his forehead, and all our enjoyment suddenly seemed a terrible, callous, frivolous thing. "So," Brother John said, not in the least cast down, "let's take ourselves and our thanksgiving to the good man's shrine. Then maybe all the saints in heaven will look down on our homeward journey and listen in on our stories. I dare say they relish a good story as much as the next men." "Amen," said the parson thoughtfully. "Amen," roared the rest of us, all except the cook, who was asleep under the table.